What's going on, guys? It's your boy Alec, aka Python Don, and welcome to part 3 of Project Yoshimitsu, my $100 eBay turbo build on my BMW E46. In this video series, I'll be taking you through a detailed and thorough journey of building an E46 turbo, start to finish, with information on every part required, and work through what it actually takes to get this job done. Sit back, get comfortable, and join me in these long-form, in-depth episodes as we take this BMW E46 to the next level. In the last episode, we successfully built and upgraded some major components of the drivetrain on Project Yoshimitsu, from the D10 pins and the ZF 5-speed to an upgraded clutch and flywheel kit and a whole host of other bits in between. With the necessary upgrades complete, this drivetrain is now ready to handle the new power we will be pushing through it. In today's episode, we watch a Ferrari on a dyno, get the turbo mounted for the first time, and break some things. Oh man, I shredded it. Love it. We will also be working on two major pieces of this turbo build. Removal of the oil pan so we can get some very important welding done, and removal of the old catalytic converters so we can get the new turbo manifold mounted. These are two very important steps in getting Yoshimitsu ready for a turbo, and once complete, we'll also mark the end of our time underneath the vehicle and lay the path to begin our engine work in episode 4. So without further ado, boys, let's get into it. What's going on, boys? I promise this is a different day. I got tea this time. Let's get into it. Welcome, boys, to part 3 of this turbo project. Starting off with the manifold here, this beautiful bad ting. Like I said, this is a custom manifold made by a guy named Camille out in Poland. And this manifold is a stainless steel manifold designed to retain your AC compressor. So big deal for me. I wanted to have the top mount because it just looks so sexy, but I didn't want to lose my AC capabilities, which is very hard to accomplish in this. So fingers crossed we can get it done. I'm super excited to finally get this mounted so we can start looking at routing and things like that, but we'll get into that part later. But yes, we're going to be removing the old exhaust manifolds and finally being able to mount this turbo manifold. It's going to be super exciting. We have some new studs to go along with it. These are N54 studs. They have a Torx bit at the end of them to allow you to torque these down into the block a little easier. And then some new hardware, OEM E46 manifold gaskets. This stud portion might be one of the harder parts of this job, as if you break one of those studs off the block, sayonara, brother. It's gonna be a hard one to fix that. So I'm gonna take it very easily. I might even not go through with this if I start to find it is hard to take off those studs. I really don't want to break a stud off on the block because I don't have the skills or the tools necessary to fix any of that if that ever happens. So we'll see how this goes. We're definitely gonna get this manifold mounted though, boys. So super exciting part of this build. So like I mentioned in the intro of last episode, the very first 2 chapters that we'll be doing work on this car, I'll be under the vehicle. So this is the last of those 2 chapters where I'll be under the vehicle. So after this whole section, we can start working on the top of the engine. I have a whole list of stuff to get through in there. There's a ton of stuff in here, here and there. But this will be the last hardest part of this whole job. So once we're done here, boys, from here on out, it'll get even easier. So I'm super excited to get started with this side of the project. But I just wanted to mention that. Let me show you the other half of this project and what it entails and why we need to get under the car in the first place. And that has to do with this whole section of the table. You can see I have an engine brace on top, and we'll get into why we need that in a moment. So here we have an oil pan gasket. So for the other major part of this video, manifold and the exhaust manifold being removal and installation of the new turbo manifold being one, and the other half being dropping the oil pan and installing all these components right here. So what are those? The first one being, this is an oil pan baffle. It's actually got some like trap doors that open and close and stuff. Pretty much what I'm going to be doing is welding this into the bottom of the oil pan to maintain oil flow and make sure I don't have any oil starvation if I'm taking a turn at at a high rate of speed or something, and maybe the oil sloshes up to one side of the pan. This is going to stop that from happening by always keeping a portion of oil in this area. Very important when you're feeding the turbo, you do not want a chance for oil starvation to happen. So this is just going to give you some preventative maintenance there and a safeguard. And then later, if I do decide I want to start drifting, which I highly doubt I will, but that's another really important factor because there you're doing slides and stuff at high speeds. So that will be being installed and welded into the oil pan. And then the last two, and very important too, we have an oil drain bung, which you have to get welded onto the side of your oil pan. We'll get into that later into this video, but we will be installing this in the side of the oil pan. And this is so that when your oil is working and needs to drain oil somewhere, and it's going to be drained to the bottom of your oil pan. So you need to have a bung on the bottom of your pan so you can route the oil drain to that. On top of that, we have a oil pump nut with a wire there. It's kind of drilled in through those holes. I talked about this in episode 1, where the oil pump nut, it's really common, especially with the 3-liter engine that I have. The higher the liter of the engine, the balancing and the harmonics of the crankshaft can actually cause that oil pump nut to slowly walk off the shaft. So if that happens while you're driving, say goodbye to your engine. You'll get an red oil light, and you probably have a millisecond of time to turn your engine off and try to save it. But if this does walk off the shaft, you have 0 oil pressure, and your engine spinning at RPM with 0 oil pressure is, no good. Let's just say that. So the cheapest mod you can do to kind of protect yourself from that is this right here. We'll be installing this on the oil pump. Now you could go with an upgraded oil pump with new gears and all kinds of upgrades there, but that's upwards of $300 to $500 removal of the oil pump and other stuff along with it. This is a $5 job, and for what I'm going to be doing, because I'm not going to be drifting or staying in the high RPMs, bouncing off rev limiter and stuff, I think this will be good enough. The whole reason why I have the engine brace and this whole job requiring us to get underneath the vehicle is because in order to remove the oil pan, the subframe's in the way, so you actually need to drop the subframe, the front subframe. So we're gonna put the brace here and we'll get into that. So lastly, we have a new oil level sensor here, something that once you're down there, you might as well replace. I think mine is the OEM part. And definitely don't want to have a faulty oil level sensor telling you you have good oil level when you in fact don't. So while you're down there, might as well replace it. And then lastly, to put it all together, we have some motor mounts here. 034 Motorsports. These are the OEM shaped motor mounts. So I have 2 of those just in case we stay OEM. And lastly, we have this Rally Road lower turbo motor mount here. So typically people would buy this motor mount because with the 2 options you have for turbo location, you have a top mount, which is what this is. Top mount being, it's going to be sitting right here. And then you have a low mount, which retains AC a little easier, and it sits lower, like it says, down into the engine frame there. With the lower mount, you're actually going to need this engine mount because the turbo would actually sit like right underneath it. This giving you that arm to have that gap to run your plumbing from the front of the turbo, etc. But I'm actually using it in this case because the wastegate location here. So here's your kind of a nipple or whatever he created to have a wastegate located. I've seen only like 1 or 2 videos. The only thing I haven't been able to figure out is how am I going to route this wastegate to keep AC. There's AC lines in the way. It's going to get really tight in here. So one thing I did see was a guy running something like this, the wastegate about here, and then some plumbing down like this under that arch, and then connecting from the downpipe, which is going to come from back here and then run down. So it's going to come like this and then connect into that downpipe. I want a recirculating wastegate. I don't want a wastegate dump like straight out the hood or some shit. Like I want this car to be clean and legitly done. Some guys do like wastegates out the hood and stuff. Look, if you're drifting and everything, I get it. But for this car, it's a clean car, it's a clean body. I want to make it right. So hopefully this is going to allow me to do that. This is that last piece that's going to really tie the manifold together and wastegate. But we can't figure out plumbing and routing and anything like that until we get this bad boy mounted. So that leads us to first step here. Let's get working on taking these exhaust manifolds off and putting on this turbo manifold. Let's do it. We'll start off by disconnecting both O2 sensor harnesses from the cats. There are 2 more O2 sensors further down into the exhaust, but we'll run into those later. After, we can remove the metal exhaust shields near the valve cover. Just like that. Just kind of work it up and down 100 times and it'll pop off, baby. The one on the back is covered in oil because I have a leaking valve cover, which is very common. So let's give it a quick clean. That way I don't completely dirty these gloves that I just put on. Nasty. Removing the entire factory exhaust manifold requires attacking the exhaust nuts from both above and below the vehicle. Most of our work will actually be done underneath the vehicle, but with these shields removed, some nuts can be accessed from above with an electric ratchet and a 1-inch extension. This is a huge help as these nuts are very tricky to remove, and just being able to get an electric ratchet on any of them is a win. Next up, we need to remove the passenger side engine mount, which will give us direct access to the manifold nuts from underneath. In order to do so, we must raise the engine slightly off the subframe and use the engine support brace to hold the engine in place. To begin, we'll loosen the bottom nut on the driver's side engine mount a few threads. Best practice is always to leave one mount in place, but loosening the bottom nut here will give us leeway we'll need to raise the engine. Next, we can remove the passenger side engine mount nut completely. Here we'll also need to remove the ground strap connecting the engine mount to the frame. And up and above. Just like that. After that, we can separate the control arms from the body. This will save us time as it's something we need to do when we're ready to drop the subframe and attack the oil pan. Now with those parts out of the way, we can get our jack and begin to raise the engine. Alrighty boys, now for the fun part. From here, we're actually jacking up from the pan this time, not from the front. We're not looking to tilt this. We're looking to raise this. I think I like that. Right there. Huh, that didn't sound cool. Alright, I think that should be enough height on the engine to allow us to remove the passenger side engine mount to then get access to the manifolds. So now I'm going to install the engine brace and lock the engine in this height so that we can drop the jack down below. I'm gonna need to install this into the middle bracket actually. So let's get this more centered. Quite a ways away, but let's see how much give this hook has. Not as much as you might think. We need to get it a little closer. I'm gonna loosen them. And then here, we'll tighten. Once we get the angle that we like. Wow. This moves quite a bit. I'm wondering if once I drop the jack underneath, will it then hold? All right, let's go for it. Let's do this real slow. Yeah, there's still quite a bit of weight on the jack underneath, so I'm gonna let this down as slow as I can. Okay. How are we looking? Oh yeah. And I can actually still climb up the threads with that, which is actually pretty impressive. I figured the weight, but keep in mind we still have the transmission installed, the transmission brace, so that's probably help alleviating some of the weight onto this, but I can actually still climb the threads with all of the weight of the engine pulling down on it, but I think we'll be good, boys. Let's go. With our engine support bar fixed in place, we can finally attack the passenger side engine mount arm. There are 4 13mm bolts holding the arm to the block. 2 towards the rear of the engine, and 2 near the ground strap anchor. And just like that, boys, we have the passenger side engine mount and arm removed from the vehicle. With these out of the way, we now have a clear view of most of the nuts from underneath the manifold. Working these isn't really that hard, but more tedious than anything. We'll use a combination of flex head ratchets, wobble extensions, and universal joints to get these puppies off the studs.
Success.
Alright boys, we got a few left. I think this is actually the last one on the bottom, and there's one up top under that metal shield. You can't see it, but there's one right there and one right above it. This is actually the nut for the other manifold. I'm going to show you guys a sick little area I found to get those off. Coming up through under here, I'm going to slide under here like this, between the control arm, right up there. Let me light it up for you boys. So just like that, through this control arm, you can see I got all the space in the world to get my gun on it with like a 1-inch extension and hit all those. But we're gonna do that right now. There it is, boys. Yeah. Oh no, I got one right here that's very loose. I just need to get it off. All right, boys, last bolt before we can get the front header off. And it's that sneaky bastard right there. Looks kind of accessible from here, you would think, but in reality, it ain't easy. So this is how I'm gonna get him. He's actually right there. So we're underneath the AC compressor, power steering lines here, and your actual rack is right there. I'm just gonna get with a little 1/4 inch and an 11 on it. Just get my hands up into here. Just, that's the last nut, boys. Gotta get this guy off. Look at that. Come on, come on. Look at that. See if I can get it by hand now. Come on. Hey! Fuck yeah, let's shake this thing. Let's see. Oh, that's the engine I'm shaking. Just I thought when we were done, boys, there is one underneath the port for the secondary air pump. Directly underneath it, you can kind of see where my extension's going. This one you literally cannot see from the bottom, from the top, literally from anywhere. You have to just feel for it, make sure your socket sits on it, and then you could break it loose. But that is the last one, I swear. Oh gosh, I'm stuck up against the AC line. Did I get it? Let's see. Where am I? Am I tripping? Oh shit. There is no stud on it. I don't know where it went. It's not in my socket. So, I think it's somewhere down there. Anyways, let's get that front header off. Let's see what we got here. Host cat O2 sensor. I don't know if it's already unplugged or what. If I should just let it hang from this. I'm gonna remove those anyways, but yeah. I think I'm gonna need to remove this guy. Now, I'm not gonna break it from here. I think there's a plug up there. I'm just gonna unbutton and leave them in. I might sell them as a part of this whole unit just for whoever needs them next. I have new ones of these and everything, so let's try that. Remember in the intro when I said there were 2 more O2 sensors down below that we'll run into? Well, this is us running into them. The harness for the 2 plugs is underneath the second engine cover near the fuel rail. Now we can get rid of these guys. Yep. Just like that. Now these are loose. We actually got a little zip tie holding us up that's holding these lines in place. You can see it's literally right on the other end of this metal bracket here. So I'm just gonna snip that zip tie and it'll let me drop it loose. Come on, you bastard. Hey, there we go. Now can we get these bad boys out? This Yes, it is, boys. How do we get this guy out of here? Aha! Hey, look at that. One cat down, boys, with both O2 sensors in them. Down for that. Let's check out the new space that we got up there to remove this guy. How am I getting out of here? Now, look at that. Let's get that old. You know what? I'm leaving these studs, boys. I'm not even gonna mess with it. Those actually look super clean. Block looks actually super clean. But look at the access we have now to the second set of studs. Way, way easier. I mean, I can get my hand up underneath and pretty much hit all of these. So let's get this last one out, boys. Let's go. This last one is wild, boys. Fatality. There it is. We did it. We finally got the exhaust manifolds removed for good. All but one of the studs stayed in the block, so I'm playing it safe and skipping replacing them with the M54 ones, as they look clean and will work just fine. Now that we have the factory manifolds removed, we can take a closer look at the differences between the stock exhaust manifolds and our new turbo manifold, as well as take a moment to better understand exactly what it is we're doing in this part of the project. Alrighty guys, now that we have the manifolds off, we can really set these side by side and get a better understanding of what it is I'm actually doing for this entire turbo project. In reality, these are the two biggest components to the entire project to make this whole thing work. Without these two components, there is no turbo build, and yeah, there is a reason that I'm setting this whole portion aside, because it is so important to kind of this whole entire project and what it actually is we are doing. So with that being said, I want to just take a moment to take a look at the differences between these two manifolds. And one thing you'll notice right away is the direction of the plumbing. So you'll see here with the regular exhaust manifolds, they're going in this direction. And on this top mount manifold, it's actually collecting into one and going upwards. So that right there is a really good indicator of something here is obviously changing. Another thing to note is just how thick these pipes are, actually how flat I should say, because they're really not thick at all. Just take a look at the difference of that versus the thickness of each of these tubes here. You can really see the difference there. The flow of the exhaust already is, due to the thicker plumbing, is going to be faster, right? So for those that understand that, hey, a turbo makes things faster, but doesn't actually understand the mechanics of it and why that is, I have a very simple question that I'll ask that if you can understand, will give you all the information you need to kind of understand this whole scenario here and what we're doing. And the question is, which one of the fan blades on the turbo spins first? This one or this one? That's right, it's the rear turbine. Having it here next to the manifold might give it away, but if you can understand that question, it'll explain everything and kind of give you the whole understanding of what we're really doing here. Now, I know that may seem like a really obvious question to those who already know everything that's going on, but for me, when I was just understanding and wanting to learn more about the mechanics of everything, how a turbo works and why we're doing this entire job in the first place, once I realized that the rear fan spins first, you know, you always see the turbo with the fan in the front, and you always figured, you know, when you hear it spool up, you see it spin. But understanding that the rear fan spins first, I think, is what really unlocks like the whole idea of like, okay, I understand how this whole concept works now. And it's freaking genius. And once you understand that, it'll lead us into the second question, which is, what form of energy are we actually recycling here with the turbo? And that's right, guys, we are using air. So it'd be amazing if the air coming out of the engine was cold, But in this case, the way we're getting the air and the force from the air is through the explosion of the exhaust gases, which are then going into here and spinning that rear blade, which is connected on a shaft to a blade in the front of the turbo, which is the one you see mostly. And that shaft, as it spins from all these exhaust gases, spinning that shaft, then spins the front shaft, which then pulls air into this chamber. You see how it narrows down like this? So as it's sucking air in, it's getting pulled into a more narrow chamber, creating pressure. And that is the pressure that we are forcing back into the intake on the other side of the engine to then go back into the combustion chamber to then restart the cycle. So essentially with the turbo, what we are doing is taking wasted energy, which would have been going out of the exhaust, and putting it back into a turbo, which is then connected to a shaft, which is then pulling back air as the rear shaft spins, recycling and recycling and recycling and recycling. So this is why inherently a turbo is always going to be a better choice than a supercharger. A supercharger is not recycling wasted energy. It's attached to a belt, which is usually attached to the crankshaft, and that spins something similar to this, like a turbine, to draw more air into the intake manifold. Whereas this is actually using exhaust that's already being created from the combustion cycle and putting it into a turbo and bringing it into the combustion chamber. Now, superchargers, they have perks because the form factor of them is a lot slimmer. You don't have to do plumbing and all this extra stuff that you would have to do with a turbo system. So there is perks to still having a supercharger. You can get the form factor, and you can get things a lot like on a Hellcat. It sits right on top of the engine. The belt's right there. It's built into the intake. So form factor wise, superchargers are sweet in that sense. But as far as the debate between what's actually better, there really is no debate. It's the reason why all these cars are going turbocharged, is because they will increase efficiency because we're recycling lost energy. So hope you guys like that little section there. For me, it was like the light bulb, like I said, that went off and helped me really understand how awesome a turbocharger really is. And the fact that it just makes so much more power because of that, it just all makes sense. I mean, you're recycling energy that's being wasted and forcing it right back into the combustion chamber. So yeah, just wanted to give you guys a little explanation here on what we are doing and why this whole project is going down. Like I said, these two parts here are literally the main components, the building blocks of every turbo build. Without this manifold, the air coming out of the exhaust system is not being rerouted into a turbo. So this is the most important piece, along with the turbo, to create this whole process. So I hope you guys enjoyed that little breakdown on the explanation and everything we're doing here and how this all works together. This is why it's one of the most important episodes in this whole build, is because we're going to be installing this manifold and stuff, and this is what's going to change the whole dynamics of the engine. So with that being said, we got a lot of work to do. Let's get back to it. It's done, boys. We finally got the old catalytic converters off, and we've made space for our new turbo manifold. We can now begin on the other large part of this project, removal of the oil pan. We can begin by removing the remaining components that will be in the way of dropping the subframe, starting off with some items up top. Removal of the auxiliary fan, removal of the oil dipstick tube, check to see if your O-ring came out with your tube. Mine stayed in the pan. Now we can take off the drive belts, now we can ready our engine support brace, lift the engine from the pan, and do our final twists up top to lock the engine in place. With the engine fully supported, we can begin removal of the remaining items underneath, starting with the power steering pump, held in with 3 13mm bolts, one holding a bracket to the body and 2 through bolts connecting it to the front of the engine. You'll need to remove the pulley from the front to get access to that last bolt. Next up, boys, we're gonna break the steering column loose. Separate it a little bit. When I drop the subframe, it'll separate the rest. I'm not gonna break this one loose. We can now completely remove the bottom nut from the driver's side engine mount. And unplug the oil level sensor. With all of that disconnected, we are ready to drop the front subframe. Let's get into position here. It's officially about that time. We got big ass 18 mil bolts on either side here. Let's crack these bad boys loose, boys. Let's get this subframe finally dropped. How about that? They're going. There we go. I got one here. One more thread going. There we go. This one here, last one. All right. Let's get the gun. Let's get this subframe lowered, boys. I've never done shit like this, boys. Y'all watching me do it. All right. Now for the fun part. I'm gonna slowly lower this bad boy. How are we looking? Pretty good. I think that's good enough. That's all of it. Hey! That should be more than enough space to get all those bolts and this pan out, boys. Whew! Success.
Success.
Yeah, that's wild. Steering shaft is literally right there, though. I wonder if I can just move this whole thing. Oh, not really. You're not mess around too much. Yeah, I don't like that. It's okay, though. Very nice. All right. Here you can see all the, you can kind of see all the bolts along the side of the pan there. We have a few here, and then the same thing along the other side. So we're gonna work on these now. They're all 10 mils. We'll start off in the rear with the 3 Torx bolts that run through the transmission bell housing. After that, we can remove the 10mm bolts from the perimeter of the pan. Starting off with the 4 in the front, working our way around the driver's side, flipping over to the passenger side to keep things even, and saving the rearmost bolts for last, as we'll be pulling the pan from the rear anyways. I lost quite a bit of audio here, so we'll continue the voiceover into the next section. Hope you guys don't mind. A few nudges from the oil pan and we finally got it loose. The only thing in the way here is the power steering pump towards the front, but with some finagling, we got it out. This is the first time I'm seeing the pan and the underside of the engine, and she is clean. No sludge or heavy varnishing, and a nice light gold color indicates frequent oil changes and a healthy engine. Very excited to see that. Next, we can work on getting the pan cleaned up and ready for transport. There was still quite a bit of oil left in the pan after using my oil extractor, which was something to note for sure. Unfortunately, my oil extractor is still full, so I wasn't able to suck up the remaining oil with it. But a million shop rags later, and we're good to go. With most of the oil removed, we can give it a good pass with some brake clean and blow it out with my air tool. And just like that, we have a nice clean oil pan. Well, at least the inside anyway. So with the interior all cleaned up and good enough for transport, we're just gonna work on the exterior real quick. I just realized I still have the gasket on the body, but let's see if I can pull it from here. No, it's on there pretty good. I'll get in there with a flathead and we'll pop it off, but let's do the exterior now. Let's remove the old oil level sensor real quick. And a can of brake clean later, and we're looking much better. Now we are clean enough to handle and transport. Let's go over one more time exactly what it is we are doing with this oil pan. There are two things we are doing here with the oil pan. One is optional and the other is required. The most important of the two is welding the oil drain bung. This is the part at which the oil from the turbo will drain down into. The biggest thing to note here is the angle of the engine relative to the angle of your oil drain bung. As you can see here, the engine is tilted quite a bit as it sits in the engine bay. You want to get your bung welded at the highest angle possible to offset the tilt of the engine. If you weld the bung straight onto the pan with no angle to it, you'll create a section where the oil will pull up as the angle is too high for the oil to pass over, causing issues with your turbo and draining its oil. The other modification we are doing is welding in the baffle. This will help keep oil held in the pool near the pickup tube for maximum protection against oil starvation. There are little trap doors on either side of the baffle that only open one way to let oil in, but not out. This is going to help protect your engine and turbo while engaged in some spirited driving. Now that we understand the work we need to do with the pan, we can drop it off with the welder. Well, not quite. I dropped it off with the welder, but right away he noticed in order to get a decent angle on the bung, I would need a longer piece. There was just not enough meat on the bung to get the angle required. He also wanted me to remove the small factory baffle that was already in the pan. So while we wait for the new bung, let's get the factory baffle out of the way. There are 3 small spot weld tabs you need to cut off in order to pull the old baffle out of the pan. Just like that, boys. Baffle is removed. Just gonna give this area a little wipe down. Get rid of all those. Look at that. That's a lot. Aluminum shavings. Absolute boatload. Check it out. Now let me get the baffle. Let me show you. Like this. The circle is gonna be closer to the front of the engine because that's where the pickup tube is. There it is. It sits a little lower like that actually. So now with the OEM baffle removed, we've made space for the new baffle. We're going to put the oil pan aside and we're going to wait for that bung to come in tomorrow. And hopefully we can get this dropped off to the welder and get this all tightened up by tomorrow. So next we have the oil pump nut, which is another major reason for taking this pan off in the first place. So let's meet down there and I'll show you guys what we're working with. Well, alrighty, boys. Welcome to the front of the engine and the oil pan off. Here we have our oil pump and our oil pump sprocket and the oil pump nut. So just a little bit of information on this oil pump. This is a mechanical oil pump. There is no electronics involved in this oil pump. So meaning when the engine is turning, it's turning this chain, which is turning this sprocket here. We're making the pump function. The pickup tube is down there. And that pickup tube is going to sit in that hole cut out of the baffle to pick up that oil, as the engine is turning. So specifically with this 330 engine, the 330 CI and the 330i, the 3-liter engine that the E46 comes with, the M54B30 it's called, there's a harmonics issue when you get high into the RPMs, close to 7,000 RPM, 6,500 to 7,000. When you're staying high in the rev range, some frequency in the crankshaft causes this nut to pretty much back off of the threads and fall into your oil pan. When that happens, your oil pump sprocket will then become loose and either fall off the shaft of the oil pump, essentially causing zero oil pressure and when your engine is moving at 7,000 RPMs and your oil pump sprocket falls off, yeah, you're pretty much sending zero oil up into the piston cavities and the crankshaft and all that. It's all fucked. So definitely something to do if you're ever going to be down here. For all the guys who are not even turboed, if you have a leaking oil pan, if you need to drop the subframe for any reason, it's honestly not that hard to drop the subframe. I'd say the transmission was a harder job than this by far. But if you need to, always recommended to do this. Some people have tack welded the nut. If you're going into some really high horsepower cases or you're going to get into some drifting, you can even remove the pump and replace it with a new upgraded pump. But in this case, we're going to do something that the aviation world does a lot, which is wire nuts. So I'll show you that in a moment. I showed you it earlier in the intro, but essentially this nut, it's a replacement nut with a hole in it. We're going to take a wire, stainless steel wire, and fish it through that hole, twist it up really good, and then tighten it around one of these sprocket, shafts. And that will ensure that even if the nut breaks loose again, the wire is actually holding it from backing off, so it'll never back off. Plus, we're going to add red Loctite to the shaft as well. So as much bulletproofing as I can do for the $6 I spent on this, we're going to be doing. Now, another interesting thing about this is reverse threaded. So I don't have a torque wrench capable of torquing in the opposite direction. So need to get kind of creative on how I'm going to snug that down, and I have a few ideas in mind. So with that being said, let's get into taking this nut off. Let's get to it. Got a fresh set of gloves here. Let's just check if the nut is on there good. Yeah, it is. I've seen guys open up the pan and the nut is literally loose by hand. So luckily we're good there. It's a counter thread 17. So we are going to break it loose with this giant breaker bar as if we're tightening. So that's the move there. Oh, did I do it? I did it. Just gonna spin that puppy off. Just like that, boys. Geez, we do not want that happening at speed, but that's why we're here. Let me get a little fresh wipe for the threads real quick. I don't know, I'm not sure if this is even necessary, but just want to do it. When we go to add our Loctite. All right, with the shaft cleaned, let's go ahead and add our red Loctite. There we go. Good enough. Now let's hand thread on our new nut. Lefty tighty, righty loosey in this scenario. So I'm gonna hand tighten it as much as possible. Now the creative idea I had with torquing this down, even though it's a counter thread, is essentially I took a nut off of one of my tires, one of my rims. I then set the torque wrench to 18 foot-pounds, and I torqued it to 18 foot-pounds. I then switched it to loosen, which in this case will be tighten for the oil pump nut, and I got the torque wrench perfectly 90 degrees and began my loosening from there. And once it broke loose, I marked on the head of the torque wrench here the angle at which it was 90 degrees. So if it was 90 degrees here, I need to turn this torque wrench until this is 90 degrees, and that will tell me how many degrees is 18 foot-pounds. So that's what we're going to do in this scenario here. We're going to get this guy lined up and make sure I can get this started just like that at 90 degrees, and then we're going to turn this way until I get that just like that. Let's break this loose. We're making sure we're at 18 foot-pounds. I should get a click here. Aha. So I'm at 18 foot-pounds and it won't break it loose. Let's see how much further I need to go. I'm right there, boys. Which tells me I went a little too far. So I am kind of on the money with this. I'm gonna go back to, okay, hand tighten, as tight as I can. Back to lefty. Get this guy to click. And then we're gonna go for it. That's it right there. We're Gucci. So anyways, play with it like that. Go back and forth with your adjustments. See until you can go to the tightening mode and getting a click. How much further after that click is it breaking loose? And that'll tell you how much past 18 foot-pounds you put it. In that case, it looked like I might have gone 20 foot-pounds, maybe 21. So I broke it loose, and now I had a better gauge of hand tightening it, getting it to click at center, and then re-going for it, this case, kind of feeling for it. So you're just gonna have to feel it out if you don't have an electronic torque gauge or something that can tell you how much torque you're putting through it. That's your best method. Now we can get onto the fun part of trying to get this wire shit done. I don't have the specific pliers for this because there is actually specific pliers. You pull down on them and they spin as you pull down, giving you that nice tight twine, but gotta do what we gotta do, boys. We gotta push through. Alrighty, boys, now I got you a close-up on working on this wire here, stainless steel wire. This is definitely gonna be a little bit of a pain in the ass, honestly, but almost the same length. You wanna get this one, this longer one, just because it's gotta bend around a nut. You're trying to bend this in a direction of where you're tightening. So we're actually bending it towards the left. And then you just wanna feed it through this hole, out the other, and then just get them pretty nice and tight with each other, and then just give it a little started nice and close like that. And I don't know, maybe I'll just try to do this by hand and just give it a bunch of, this is where I kind of have zero finesse. Like when it comes to stuff like this, I am just not good at all. Like that looks like dog shit. Alrighty, boys, I've succumbed to it. Succumbed to what I guess I could call doing the right thing, or doing it the right way. I bought some safety wire pliers. I got these actually at Harbor Freight for like $6 or whatever, 10 bucks. So whatever. I guess I might probably never use this again, but I have it now, and I figured, you know what, I want to do this the right way. So I've never done these before ever. So let's give them a shot. It should be better than what I was doing previously. So anyways, I'm going to try to straighten out this wire and get it back to a nice place before working with this guy. And I'm really not sure how to straighten this out, to be honest with you. I mangled the hell out of this one. Maybe two hands. Let's see. What's also interesting is the holes. Once this nut was threaded and tightened, the holes to access are up here. So it would be lovely if the holes were down here and the wire was in the bottom side and I could play with it this way, but that's just my luck. It is what it is. So we're gonna bend it and get it to this part of the sprocket there. So we're just kind of measuring. That's a big ass mosquito. We're just kind of measuring where I gotta pinch it from, and I'm gonna pinch it from right about there. All right, so these you really need to pinch them tight, and then you can pull the locking sleeve down. Oh, and I shredded it. Yep, and we gotta restart, boys. All right, let's just say that's not how it's done. And guess what? I don't have any more safety wire, so we have to wait. So I'm on pause. Sweet, love it. Oh, we'll try this again when we have new wire. Alrighty, boys. We are back at the welding shop, and we have our new bung here. So it's, like I said, MPT threaded on the bottom. That's not gonna matter. We're just gonna snip that off. But the longer shaft should give us a little easier of a chance of mounting it there at the angle and just having more meat to weld on the pan and stuff. So I'm gonna drop it off now to him and meet you guys back in the garage. All right, so now that we've snapped that safety wire and we have to wait to get some anyways, the oil pan, as you guys saw, is at the welder now, and it's gonna take about till Monday, and it's Friday right now for that to be completed. So in the meantime, we can get on to some part that's actually really exciting, which is finally mounting the manifold. Let me see if we can mount it while this is in the way. The manifold actually gets installed from underneath the vehicle, so the engine brakes being in the way won't be an issue. I've been waiting so long for this moment. We can finally get this manifold put on the engine for the first time and be able to, 1, confirm it actually fits and clears the AC system, and 2, allow us to then plan and figure out routing for plumbing, oil lines, and everything in between. I've also decided to bail on replacing the studs in the block with the N54 ones. All but one of the studs stayed in the block, and as it turns out, the length of the N54 studs are just a little too short for the thickness of this new manifold. With that being said, let's try and test fit this custom piece of art to the engine. So, no gasket or anything right now, we're just trying to get it sitting onto the studs. Now let's see if it'll fall out if I just can finagle it up and in there. Will it be able to just stay put on the studs, or is it gonna want to just unseat itself? Let's see. Okay, how do I twist it? This might be nice if you had somebody. There's something, maybe it's the firewall. Oh, it's the AC lines. Of course. We knew that was gonna be a problem. I got one side up, I got the other side up. Oh my God, yo! No fucking way, boys. All right, do not fall, please do not fall, because I have no studs. Do not fall, please do not fall. I should have came prepared here. There's definitely gonna be some creativity here on how we are going to do the wastegate piping, but that's what we're here for, some creative action. There's already some heat shielding on the AC kind of lines here, so they're protected in a way. I might wrap them even further, but anyways, let's get up top and see how that bad boy looks, boys. Let's go. Check this shit out, boys. Holy crap. Manifold placement looks absolutely nutty. Where the turbo is gonna sit, I got these studs here where the secondary air pump used to sit. I'll probably just cut them off with the Dremel, but look at the location of that. Let's try to see if I can just set the turbo on it. Obviously need to clock the turbo and everything, and I need to find studs long enough to go through there and the turbo. Let's see if we could set the turbo on it and see what it would look like with it just mocked up. Holy shit. Will it just stay put? No, I have to get the camera. Take a look at this. It actually clears. It actually clears the freaking stud. Crazily enough, the stud is a mil or a few mil away from hitting the turbo block. But holy cannoli, what an interesting angle. I'm gonna need this angle, but look, I don't know if you guys can see this here. It clears the AC lines. Let me bring you guys in. All right, bear with me, boys, because I'm trying to hold this and it's sitting on shit, but you kind of see it. Big ass turbo, holy crap. And look, fits the AC lines. Now I have the dryer, AC dryer thingy, which I think absorbs all the moisture in the AC system, so you don't have humidity in your car. It's in the way. You know, every day I'm in here, I'm like, how the hell am I gonna run plumbing? And I've just been looking down, I think we might have a route. So we're gonna work on that next video, but check that out. Well, alrighty, boys, just like that, we got somewhat of an idea of where the turbo location is going to be. The manifold actually fits, which is amazing. We just have to figure out that wastegate, but that's way down the line, a few more episodes in the future. So it's Friday, it's the weekend, and right now we're kind of on pause. I got the oil pan getting welded up and getting some work done. I got the wire, safety wire ordered, found it on Amazon, $9 for a reel. Like I said, I'll probably never use it again, but I'll keep the pliers and the reel of wire, and we'll get that part finished on Monday when the pan is done and that arrives. So with that being said, guys, we're gonna be on pause. I actually have a friend hit me up from Ferrari that works there, and they got some Ferraris in the dyno they're gonna be doing. So we're gonna head over there. I'm gonna shower up. Maybe I'll see you guys in Ferrari with some fun vlog style footage over there. 14 at the wheel. Well, there it is, boys. Never seen a Ferrari on a dyno, let alone a 458 Speciale. So that's awesome. Yeah, at full tilt, when that thing gets in those high RPMs, gosh, the mics really never pick it up, but the sound was amazing, amazing. But 414 horsepower to the wheel. I know the dynos, different dynos, you know, show different results and stuff, but it's pretty crazy to think if this BMW gets done and we'll push the power we want through it, there's a chance we'll make more horsepower than that 458 Speciale. So super freaking cool. But hope you guys liked the little clip, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Well, boys. Good morning. It's Monday. Look what we got here. So let's get back under there and let's get weird. I'm no longer worried about messing it up because I have 600 tries, so. Alrighty, boys. Back under this whippy. Let's try this damn thing. Where's the whole, hey, look how much easier that was to go through. So I don't know how much length I needed, but I cut whatever I thought I did. Gonna do the same thing again. Let's give ourselves a little more meat at the top, because we're gonna bend this together and downwards, just like that. Boom. I want to tie it around this guy there. I don't cut it. Maybe I gotta grab it like this. That. Aha. Aha. Think that's it. There we go. Now, take a look. A lot better. Looks a lot better now. So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna take one end. How the hell am I gonna get it from behind that? That's wildin'. Oh, I can get my finger back there. Didn't even realize that. Okay, now I gotta take my plier and grab it. There we go. That's how you want it to look, boys. Like that. Let's get it nice and pushed outward like that. We're gonna connect them. See how much longer that other one is? I'm actually gonna snip it just a little bit, like that. I might even just start one twist with them, and then bring them together. You wanna get them, I've realized you wanna get them as close to each other as possible when you go to grab them. And then I did notice there's just like this little, I don't know, there's like a little raised angled edge there, and that's what I'm assuming you're supposed to grab them from so that you don't cut. Because if you grab them dead straight, you might cut, like what I was worried about. So I'm gonna try that again. And I'm gonna grab them right where I've twisted them together. It's kind of hard to see though, but nope, I'm not a fan of that. Fuck, it's gonna snap, guys. Oof, but you know what? I think that's okay. I'm gonna send it. It got a pretty good amount of twists off. I got it wrapped around. I think it's good. What do y'all think? Look at that. I'm happy with that. All right. Woo, we're good. And just like that, boys, our work with the oil pump is finally complete. The oil pan isn't in yet, so we're gonna take this time to check fitment of the new engine mount arm. If this fits, we'll have a clear shot at routing the wastegate in the future. All right, I'm gonna pull you guys in from the wheel well here. I'm gonna get underneath. We're gonna look up at our manifold, and you can see what we're working with here. There's some bolts there threaded. We have 6 for different locations for the engine mount, I think. I think we're gonna be using this one here or the one further ahead. But you can see if we look up, here's our turbo manifold, and that right there is a tube made for our wastegate. I can take that tube and maybe bend it downward. I've seen placements of like the wastegate here and then running a tube from the back of it to connect to the downpipe. Now, we need the engine mount, and the engine mount, the original one, you guys remember, was right here, straight like this. And just by looking at this, I don't know. We're gonna have to see how this new one's gonna mount up. So let me get you guys set on the tripod, and let's see how this other engine mount mounts up. I have the AC compressor right there anyways, so I'm not sure how I'm gonna run the downpipe tube through the mount if the compressor's right there, but I'm not sure which holes the mount's on, if it's on this one or this one. That will determine something. If it's here, I might have space to come in through here under the gap and out the back. So let's see. All right, feel like I'm definitely gonna be in your guys' way a bit here, but it is what it is. Let me see where this engine mount, if first off, we gotta just determine, does it come in contact with the wastegate? And guess what, boys? Yes, it does. Let me see. You hear that? Just barely, but it definitely does. So this rally road idea I had $180 later is not gonna work. Which means we're gonna have to go with OEM engine mount location, engine mount arm. But remember, the subframe is lowered right now. This is actually where the subframe will sit. So the arm that we're gonna be putting isn't really gonna give us that much more space. It sits kinda like this way. So actually the arch is actually in the way because it's interfering with the tubing right here. Another thing to notice is which one of these 4 squares is the arm on. Where is it? It's behind me. Let me show you. Let's grab it. Oh, check this out. It takes the entire 6. So it's gonna sit like this. Wow, there's no way. There's no way of running that. Well, the rally road mount and the mount I saw, they weren't the same, but they were the same concept. The mount I saw was like these 2 holes and then just a straight arm like this, giving you all that gap to run the plumbing through. I'm gonna see if I can find that, or if that was just a custom mount made by somebody in Europe, which it probably was. It's probably not even for sale. So how do I do this and find a space for the wastegate dump? Do we just dump straight to the floor? Let me get a little further underneath and see if I can get a better view of what I'm looking at here. Looks like, boys, we're gonna have to do a dump straight to the floor. I'll be able to put a tube, be able to mount the wastegate where it is right there and literally just shoot a tube right down through here. Oh wait, my subframe's there. Well, no, my subframe will be, we'll see when I put the subframe back on. Let's see where the subframe is gonna be located, but that's gonna be a pain in the ass to set up. For sure. I'm gonna see if I can find that arm. I'm gonna list that rally road one for sale. Anyways, boys, we're pretty much summed up here. Let's, I'll meet you guys when we get the oil pan. Well. Look what we got here, boys. Oil pan's finally back. Baffle's been welded in on all corners. Check out the bung. We got a bung made. The angle that I need it, it's good enough. Definitely better than just being straight out like this. But yeah, check it out. It's officially ready to roll. So we're set up here. Now we need to prep the oil pan for going back into the engine. So let's get started. All right, we're gonna flip the engine on its backside. Spin this so you guys get a better view. And we'll start off by installing our new oil level sensor. So I have 2 studs here and 1 stud that came out with the block. So we're gonna put that new that stud back in. We got a cutout here for where the harness goes. So we're just gonna slide this in on these 2 studs, just like that. Take my stud that came out of the block, just gonna add a little bit of blue Loctite here. A little bit, right? And just hand thread it in. So we'll hand thread it in as much as I can. It's not going any further, so just gonna walk it down with a 10 mil. The moment I get resistance, I'm gonna stop because we're gonna torque these to 10 Newton meters. It's like 6 foot-pounds. It's really nothing. There it goes. There we go. Beautiful. Next up, we're going to prepare the oil pan gasket. When my guy welded the bung on here, I noticed I had this little raised dimple here on the surface of the pan. I took a, you can kind of see where I hit it with a file to file it down a bit, but it still has a little bit of raised edge. So what I'm going to do, I don't know if this is going to be a good idea or not, but I'm going for it. I'm just going to hit it with just a very thin coat of RTV, just to help protect me there and then I'll show you what we'll do next with the oil pan gasket to help us out when installing. So let's check orientation of this, just see how this needs to go. Yep, we're looking just like that. We got a rounded corner here, more like a 90 degree, and then this 60 degree bend or whatever that is. So it's gonna go just like that. And that little bit of glue that I had, hopefully will hold it down in place a bit. All right, what we're also gonna do is we're gonna take some zip ties here, and just on 4 corners, I'm gonna go through these holes here, like this. And I'm just gonna make sure my snipping point is at the bottom here. Get that a little tight, nothing crazy. I'm gonna do the same thing on this end, just to hold the gasket in place, because we are gonna be going under there. There's gonna be a bunch of moving parts and stuff. And then what I'm gonna do is try to thread in some holes close to these, get them seated pretty well, and then snip these loose and then just start all the other holes. So seeing that as like a pretty good little trick to keep the oil pan gasket in place. Just realign your holes as you go about this. And just like that, boys, we are ready to install this oil pan. We need to now go on to the surface of the block itself and apply some RTV under there before we can fully get this going. So let's do that. Gently go across it like that, I don't know, and then I'm gonna roll with that, I think. Do the same thing up here. All right, I think I like that. Let's make our way to the front now. All right, let's go for it. Damn, that's a chunky boy. And I'm gonna do the other side outside of the shop, boys, but you get the idea. Let's get this oil pan back into the car, boys. Let's do this. A few things I'm looking out for. In the very front, we got the power steering pump. It's gonna be somewhat in the way, as long as I can slither by it, which I think I've just done. Get out of my way, Brady. I think that helped. All right, so now that we got everything hand snugged down, we got 4 bolts left, and it's the 4 zip lines that are in those holes. So you'll see here, still got some slack. We know the gasket is lined up. We just need to snip this now and pull this out. So we're gonna do that now. See, this guy's just a little too tight here. See how it got stuck like that? We're gonna loosen it a bit and get it out. There we go. All right, we can begin torquing these down. I'm gonna start with this front corner here, but we're looking for 10 Newton meters. Yeah, we're just gonna go down the line. All right, guys, we can begin now getting the subframe back into the car. So I'm just gonna start off by, let's get this lifted up. There is dowels here now on the subframe holes. We're quite a ways behind. So let me actually lower this a bit. Let me get the jack more centered. And we'll come up like this. Seems as though this subframe has twisted a bit. Yeah, okay, hold on. There we go. That's a little more like it. Maybe not quite, but I'm in your guys' way, of course. Okay, hold on. Back this up a bit. So I got one dowel in. And it looks like maybe right there I have another. Okay, let's see what I'm doing here. Money. Those dowels really help line things up. So I'm gonna go in here. Where's my gun at? There we go, boys. Got the big guns now. Woo! But just like that, boys, we are finally finished with episode 3. I think everything came out pretty well. It was a pretty challenging episode, dropping the subframe and stuff and getting to the oil pan. Never done anything like that before, but I'll say it was easier than episode 2, if you will, when we dropped the transmission. Still was an easier job than that, personally. That transmission was, man, getting that thing back on by yourself, whew, very hard. But just want to say thank you guys for all the support right now in those latest 2 videos. Getting a lot of love on them, and let's keep this going, boys. We got a lot of stuff still to do in this car. From here on out, we're going to be working on a lot of stuff above the vehicle, in the engine bay, including this piece I have right here. That's right, we're finally going to get this guy installed and a whole host of other things. So next episode is going to be all kinds of stuff in the engine bay. Then after that, we'll get into fuel systems, wiring for all the turbo gauges. We're going to do plumbing and clocking the turbo, so a lot of fun stuff up ahead, boys. But the oil pan, the manifolds are taken off. We got the turbo manifold mounted, and now we can see the location of things. Yeah, guys, hope you liked the video. If you did, if you found some value in it, guys, please give it a like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. And yeah, it's pretty hot out. Got a little bit left of the day. I might just go hit the pool and enjoy the rest of the day. Crank on some editing tonight and hopefully get you guys this video by Friday. So let's see. Anyways, guys, it was a pleasure, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.